throughout the grant processes, even for federal and state, even the grant that Jill was behind, like tried to initiate last year with the help of the hospital, would be that this would have more data available for these grants and allow for more collaborative efforts and for an actual study of our community, which is not available for the grant process. So could you please touch upon whether or not that would be something we could discuss in front of us?
So you certainly can discuss whether this group feels it meets the criteria and would be an appropriate recommendation to make. The response that we've ultimately gotten is that there is a reference to other related costs, not just direct programming and personnel. So if you feel as a group, based on the grants that have come in, that that type of study would be appropriate, that is the argument then you need to make to town administration and subsequently FinCom to make an approval of or a positive motion on your recommendation for Article 9. I think there is still some question whether that is an appropriate interpretation or not of this type of funding. The understanding is that it's direct programming or services, and a study is, yes, while it might provide additional grants or funding or identify needs in the community, is it really a program, a service, or a personnel? So I think that's an interpretation factor. That's sort of the response that we got from legal as well, is that if you can determine as a group that that is the best use of the funding and that it would meet the criteria and how, that is the argument you make with your recommendation to FinCom and town administration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question whether that is appropriate, but that is where this group, if that is something that comes forward to you as a request, would have to vet very carefully.
Okay. Hey, Brooke, I saw that your hand went up.
Yeah, I was going to ask process. So it would have to be, we would only consider it if an organization made a proposal to do such a study. We couldn't recommend that a contract, an RFP go out for such work on our own.
No.
Okay.
No, it has to be a
You
grant.
also shouldn't be approaching any agencies to recommend they submit it for. You would say, we have this ad, we have this grant, if there's something in mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. And then I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, Dorothy, you talked about the stabilization fund. Is that for the balance of this money, or is it separate?
I did not speak about it, but I will let Rachel. I think you said Dorothy.
Separate.
Rachel.
Don't worry about that. It's totally separate. It's something to worry about at a later date. Right now, you just have the 97,988.68 to fill.
Okay.
So I think
stabilization funds on my mind.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing for you, Brooke, actually. But Rachel, that's just because that's not set up yet, right? So you have the money this year for us to spend.
Article 28 sets it up, and we go from there.
I forgot in Article 28, just so I know, because this will help maybe Dorothy plan going forward. Is it a full amount? I'm getting there in I'm scrolling.
Is what a full?
The stabilization fund, is that the full amount of the tax? Or is it just a percentage?
So that might be more of a question for Brian, but I think all it does is establish that one would exist so that that funding that starts to come in from the town would place there. We do have another dispensary coming in, so we've only had one dispensary that this funding is from. So there could be, and I think there's other uses as well for the funds. So I'd have to pull up Article 28 to read it.
I'm getting there. I'm very close.
Yeah, it's not really an appropriation article. While Article 9 is an appropriation article. So it didn't quite make sense, even though it's related to the marijuana funding, as people are coming to claim it as. It doesn't really fall under that article.
Yeah, 28 is a little confusing. So it says that without further appropriation, 100% of any community impact fee paid to the town by a marijuana dispensary and or a marijuana retail establishment to the special stabilization fund for substance abuse, blah, blah, blah. Then it said dedication to be in addition to 50% of the local option marijuana sales tax. So I guess, I don't know, did we do a community impact fee?
There is things within the host agreements that has an impact fee as well as the tax, and then we as a local.
Gotcha. So it's 100% of the impact
Above.
fee and it's 50% of the tax. There you go. Okay. That's
So I
what I'm,
think it's astounding, everybody, that we have nearly $100,000 in taxes available right now from it.
yeah, it's just like the short-term rental money, just, I mean, that was new money and people are like, oh my gosh, it could end up being like $9 million. And it came, I mean, that's almost 10% of our budget, like came out of nowhere. So it's pretty amazing.
Amazing, but I'm more astounded that we had that many sales that we hit $100,000 in taxes. And you,
I know, and that's only one dispensary.
I know, it's concerning.
Also without medical, and I believe the other is getting medical too as well. So there might be,
Yeah.
so this is a good start, I think, for a fund like this, and then to be able to move the money back into the community for substance misuse programs. So.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it's certainly interesting from the perspective of the portion of the regular allocation every year that is related to substance abuse services, that with this new funding, that say the allocation that we gave to NAMI this year could come out of this in future years, freeing up those dollars for non-substance abuse related services. So, right?
So they are separate grants.
They're
Just
very
yeah.
separate.
always try to keep that in mind, is they are
Right.
separate, but part of your deliberations, when you do receive any of the packets, it's not required in this one this time, because you already sort of did it with most of the agencies anyways. But usually part of the contract review responses in their grant applications is that they have to disclose to you what grants they have, anticipate getting, or are applying for. And that's why you sort of take that into consideration. So if they have other grants out there or ones that are pending, you can sort of take that into consideration if you're trying to vying between, well, we only have this much money between these two agencies, but they look like they might have more viable grant opportunities. You can take it into consideration for sure, but always try to keep them as very separate grants.
Right, and I think it's important to remember that we in the grant process, the tax dollars will never, none of our money is ever dependable. We're thankful that we get what we got this year. Thankful for last year as well. We don't know what the tax dollars will be. Some of these programs run on a basis of every year, and we have a good idea what the programs are. Sometimes this allocation of these tax monies could maybe implement other programs or other things that they would like to try for a year that might not be. So we're going to have to keep our eyes wide open to the grant process and not, we made a mistake a few years ago. I can say that as an organization, when a grant, we were told about a gift being given to an organization, and we found out prior to the process, and we sort of incorporated that into our thought process, which we realized afterwards was not the right way to go. We should have just allowed that gift to go to benefit the program for a year in a different way than what their normal grant could have. So I think we have to be very careful not to step over that line as we did. We realized we made a mistake and fixed it with the next couple of years. It hasn't been a part of it, but we really did use it in our conversation. And I think it actually did not help the organization the year we did it. Would you agree, Rachel? We really had to pull that out of our conversation and be more aware of the present grant at that time that they're asking for funding.
Yeah, if you recall, I think I tried my hardest to remind you all to talk about them separately.
Well,
Keep it out of the deliberation, but everybody kept saying, well, we have this money and we know it's going to them.
We made a big mistake and we realized it afterwards. And yes, Rachel was a big advocate for us to not go the route we went, but we went the route we went. So and I think that's what she's trying to remind us. Yeah, I think that's what she's trying to remind us of right now, is to be very careful when we go in that process. Brooke?
So do you anticipate that this board will be the reviewer of the grant requests for that marijuana tax and stabilization fund going forward, or will there be a new group established for that?
No, I believe the intent, and as been discussed with town administration, and I think it's been supported through the select board, because we've heard no response back that they would prefer differently, is that this group is already established. They're already appointed by the select board, and you already do that type of review related to very similar solicitation. Well, I call a solicitation packet, one's a grant application. It's basically the same thing, different words. And because you're already established, it doesn't really make sense to establish again.
Just as a thought, in terms of our workload and the timing, the cycle will be the same.
No, this year was a little different by the timing of the funding coming in and knowing that we should appropriate it. Likely it will be earlier. For instance, the timing, by the time I was able to get the packet approved, sending out on March 4th to have them do March 19th to have you meet days later so that it can get to FinComs before they have to close their final motions. That's a very quick turnaround, and I do not anticipate that happening next year. I think we'll have a much longer time for a review. It's just a time crunch this year, the way things fall.
However, it will be on top of the CRC, normal CRC decision-making at the same time, right?
Likely,
So if
yes.
if this dollar volume grows, I'm just thinking in terms of like the time it takes us to review allocating the budget money, you know, and then tack on another whole level of that. I'm just trying to plan ahead in terms of our time commitment.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out a way to separate it either on the agenda or separate meetings. But there's definitely a way to do it, and also tried to be as respectful as we can of your guys' time, for sure.
Great.
Okay. Just sort of wait. I want to wait for John to get back here for a minute, guys. Did everybody have a chance to read the report? Thanks. There have been a tremendous amount of editorial changes to the report, which are taking me a while to put into place. But they're just editing. Jill, I see you in hesitation. Is there hesitation there?
I haven't seen the report, Denise. I'm really sorry. I mean, Dorothy, gosh, I'm going FinCom crazy. I'm sure you guys can imagine. It's been really intense, and I have hundreds and hundreds of emails for all these other articles. So that's why I've missed Ann's, and I'm really sorry, Dorothy, because I want to make sure I respect all the work. I know you do such an awesome job on those. So can you guys tell me what day you sent that?
It was sent over the weekend. It was actually sent. It was sent on Saturday morning.
Okay.
And it was actually sent from my email address because of when it was finished and the inability for town management, or for Ann and Rachel to access the town server from home. Correct? Is that right, Rachel? Like you couldn't.
Yeah, all town external send and receive email was down from Thursday forward.
Right. So just today I got things that were sent last Thursday. I don't have anything from the weekend. I have a lot of things from Monday and Friday, but nothing Saturday and Sunday in my email.
Yeah, I sent it out Sunday morning.
And I have no emails from Sunday in my, Nantucket email. I'm looking at it right now. But
Okay.
let me search your name and see if something pops up differently. I like the old system.
I sent it to your one at nantucket-ma.gov.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
That's the problem.
Your search didn't return any results. I mean, I put your name in. I don't have anything from you.
Okay. I did send it out.
Oh, I'm sure you did. I'm just letting you know I don't have it. And that's
right. I didn't get a setback, so we'll forward you it. I've made just grammar and spelling reforms to it, and some resentencing of some things. but otherwise, so what we were gonna do today was vote on the content of it. And so that I can get it over to Brian Turbert.
Yep.
And so I guess we should wait for John for content and allow you, if you find any things that you want taken out of content afterwards. It's like a 12, 13-page report, so I don't
Yeah.
have time to
My
go.
guess is because of the system being down, all those emails that were sent to me are still either loading in or some were, we just got flooded with letters. So I'm looking at it and I've got things from Friday. That's the lot. And then my emails don't start again until Monday, but I don't see your name in any of these.
It would have come from hoss.75@live.com.
All right, so it won't pop up as Dorothy.
It will pop up as D. Edwards. Long story.
Hey, John.
Don't
good
say
to see
anything,
you.
John.
I'm back again.
John Balash is back in at 10:38, Ann. So John, we just did a rough, or not a rough, but we just had a discussion over the new grant. And I'm gonna let Rachel just tell you very quickly what it is and what our process is gonna be. And then we'll go on to the rest, okay? Because, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask it.
So through the dispensaries, it's sort of been known as the marijuana tax, but we have the community host agreements or host community agreements with them, and we have a tax on the sales that they do. We have 97,988 and 68 cents, and we are asking this group, because you already are very familiar with the vetting process of the grants through the nonprofit agencies, to take a look at the applications that come in and make your recommendation at who that funding goes to. We have 3 applications that have gone out so far. They were available March 4th. They're due March 19th, which is also why you have a meeting on the 24th, I think.
Yes, yep, 24th.
To approve that. It's a very quick turnaround so that that recommendation can go to FinCom and Town Administration for the town warrant. It's being added to the same article that your recommendations for the Contract Review Committee grants are. Obviously just a separate chart, but with a separate motion because they're separate funding sources. But that's ultimately what it is. And next year, we do hope that you will have a little bit more time in the process. So it's not so crunched to deliberate. But I think it makes the most sense that this group, we anticipated that the agencies that would be applying were ones that you've already interviewed or have familiarity with their organizations. So it's not completely coming out of left field. Do you have any questions on that?
I think it's pretty clear. You're always very clear.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so
I will send around, I'll send it to Anne, the information so that you all know sort of the criteria that you're reviewing those against, because they are very specific for substance misuse programs and services. Just so you see that. So when you'll have that for your meeting on the 24th, along with the applications.
By the way, what time is the meeting on the 24th?
I think it was 10 o'clock, right, Ann?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Okay, just,
Hey, Ann, could you do me a favor? Would you send Jill the email, unedited email of the Contract Review Committee report right now?
Sure.
Okay. And Jill, even though you're going to get it again, of course, it's not edited, and there is a nicer edited version coming out. But that's why Dorothy has so many editors.
well, unfortunately, I couldn't figure out how to edit it on my screen, and so you don't have my scrivener's input.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to send this new one out as soon as I get it finished. And you guys can, I think it will have been edited enough with hopes that it has no other need for content. I mean, for editing. So what I had on the table right now was because we have to make a recommendation to Brian, that we, and if Jill wants to quickly go over it when she gets it, we're discussing whether we can approve the content of it and the allocations of the money, and then get the final report with editing, out to everybody. And wait a minute, because I see Rachel's hand going up.
I just, I apologize because I know when you had provided it to me, I didn't get anything back to you until last night. There were some number changes in that chart that I noted.
Okay, I did not see that, so could we go down to, I'll go down to it. Hold on one sec.
But also in the summary, there was a number and percentage change that I had there as well, where you list the total number of requests.
Okay, so hold on, sorry, I'm gonna go up to the top of that real quick, okay?
Mhm.
Okay,
I can maybe share my screen too, if it helps. I think there was a total change that I had for the total grant requests that came in.
mhm.
And then Nantucket Cottage Hospital was listed at 133,000, and I only had that at 130. Where Artists Association was listed in your report at 22,100, where I had that was level funded at 18,000.
Okay, so that might have been that I
Uh,
just was so
Just
tired.
was like 10 cents off, but I just edited that, so I just wanted.
Okay, so can we go, I'm gonna go back to it and take a look. I'm at it right now, so. Art Association, oh, I'm sorry, it was level funded. I don't know why I did that. Sorry, thank you. I'm not going to tell you what time I was doing this at. Okay,
Just for like Jill and others that might be looking at the unedited one that you have that is to be sent out, so that they know that while there might be minor grammar or word or edits that you're doing, that those were the main ones that they would be.
and what was the other one? Sorry, the hospital?
The hospital, I believe you just put the 3,000 up to Nantucket Cottage Hospital, I believe. How I have it is the vote was 130,000.
Yep.
7120, but you had listed 133.
Thank you very much.
Cape Cod Dispute Resolution Center, or Cape Mediation, was 2,205.90 in your report, but I have 2,205.80, which was their request. So it's just some minor dollar amount changes. But I had put that in my edits to you. Just, I think otherwise, when you're talking about just content edits, that's fine. Those were just that was a content, important content.
Thank you. And I'm up, can we go up to the top, Rachel? I'm sorry, and your summary?
Yeah, so under summary, paragraph 2, you had listed 12 grant applications received. I did note 13 and then parentheses, 1 later withdrawn. I didn't, that's obviously your choice whether you want to include that or not. But you had, the total was
Oh, showed the 13.
wrong.
Did the total show the 13 applicants?
No, well, the total should show the 13 applicants.
And it doesn't.
And it did. Sorry, I think you had 774,362. But the total applications received was 773. I don't know, my edits are hard to read on here. 852, which altered the percentage a little bit. Let me pull up the,
Thank you.
not overly important, but
Oh, it is important. Has to be accurate. Okay, what was the number?
let me just check those. Let me just, I'm gonna pull it up because it looks like when I tracked changes so that you could read it, and it looks like I didn't remove a number. So I just want to be sure if I'm telling you a number, it's the right one.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I think everybody's just looking at content overall. So all 13 requests were 773,852.14.
773, 852, what was
And
that?
14 cents,
14 cents, 13. Okay, so I will.
which
put-
I get to be like 8.3999%, so 84%.
Okay, I'll make those changes. Thank you. So what I'm asking for is approval of content and the numbers so we can get it to FinCom.
I'll make a motion to approve it as to content. Do you want two motions or one?
Too, I need the money too.
Okay, I made the first motion. John, you want to second that?
Sure, I'll second it.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Bert,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Jill? Okay, recommendations on, can somebody make a recommendation on the financial end of the grants, please?
I'll make a
I'll make that
motion to
motion.
approve the financial,
Oh, wait, hold on. Brooke's asking a question, so before we,
oh, excuse me.
Rachel, would now be the appropriate time for me to say something or,
do you have a question, Brooke? Feel free to
I-
ask a question.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
So before we move on the dollar amounts, I've been getting some feedback from the community with concerns about the food pantry and the delivery of service and some concerns about it. And I wanted to raise it before we approve the allocations for the year. I don't know that it's going to change anything. What the sense I'm getting is that there could be improved innovation and efficiencies in the organization, and that I was not aware of this until very recently from just feedback I'm hearing in the community. And I just wanted to raise it to the group before we made the allocations. And I'm not specifically requesting it, but I guess I'm looking for, since I'm new to this, maybe suggestions on what we might do in terms of suggestions. I don't know whether we can make suggestions to the organization about maybe it's a time for them to do some planning or feedback, solicitation of feedback from their clients, or I don't know what that process would be. I just wanted to raise it today.
What was the
I think
complaint
it's,
for?
I think it's, oh, sorry. What, Bert?
What was the complaint that she had gotten? Was it from a person or several people?
So it was from an individual, and but also one person in particular, but observations about just inefficiencies like lines out the door for food collection, and is that necessary? And has the food delivery industry changed, and is the food pantry keeping up with innovation within their industry? And
what?
Hold on. Let her finish. Go on.
I want to be careful because the person who spoke to me is not really prepared to comment publicly. So it's a delicate situation, guys. I'm sorry. It's and I know that sounds circumspect, but I don't know how to approach it from here.
Okay, I think I'm willingly will engage in a conversation with you about this. And I think that what you're hearing is concerns that we've brought up over the last few years over some of the ways that programs are run. over, it's very difficult to understand their finances. We sometimes run into unanswered questions, or questions when we ask questions where we're told, this individual works so hard for us, or this does so hard. When we have had concerns in the past over salaries, over delivery of services, over how is that service being delivered? Is it being tracked adequately? Are the right people being served? Is it being abused? Which is all typical conversations had. We have had in the past times when we've had concerns over organizations, and we've been able to address that, whether we address it in, we did 2 years ago. So what used to happen is they used to come into us as two different entities. And we would sit down, and it was crazy to try to figure out what was going on and what were we actually paying here, and why was this overhead there, and why was that overhead there. And it was actually 3 different organizations. So they came in as rental, food, and fuel. And we actually said, look, we can't do this anymore. You have to come in as one organization. We have to have it all within one body that we're getting it. So the first year it came back with one, but we had 3 separate reports, which is fine, but that wasn't what we were asking for. We were asking for, what is the Interfaith Council's overhead? What are your salaries overhead? What are, because their reports are impossible to read. And as I noted to you, at the beginning about the Interfaith Council, was that none of the numbers added up. If you did it properly, it did not add up. Nothing added up. But also there has been a lot of concerns, and quite frankly, I've been in the hot seat with the Interfaith Council, because I have asked for tasks, whether it's bringing volunteers in, or why is the fuel assistance program being run this way, or why is that? And it caused a little bit of rough. At one point, I had to sit down with Janice and say, look, this isn't personal. This is actually coming to you because we represent the taxpayers, and I need answers. It doesn't make sense. So I think what you have are some very valid questions and concerns that have been shown before, questions that we've tried to address in separate ways. It was definitely helped us over a couple of years to really get a little bit better finances. Denise really sat down and was like, well, that doesn't make sense. And Brian's told us, and we got a good feedback on it. I think when we see any concerns in any private nonprofit that we're funding, you have to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. That's why even my question with the bags that came up of food, even though everybody came up with this answer for Salvation Army, the Salvation Army made their donations in the spring. That thing was posted midsummer. So this was not, there are no valid answers sometimes. It's always protective, instead of saying, hey, I think we might have a problem here and let's find a way to address it. So I think that discussion about how we can look at that is very valid and very important. And if one person in the community shows us concern, then it's like with anything else, it matters. It matters. You don't have to tell us who it is, but we should be able to address some of the concerns they have, because it is public funding going to a private entity. So, and would it be, what kind of thing would we think of asking of them? Are you asking for a better financial audit of them? A better structural audit? What are we looking at? Oh, Jill has her hand up, and
I just wondered, I mean, I on a kind of a bigger look at it, and I'm just gonna throw these comments out, okay? So I'm not. The first thing is, the Interfaith Council has a board, and they have a board that oversees them. So I feel like, I want to be respectful of their board and what they're doing. I don't know if it, maybe you can bring your concerns to them, Brooke, and because you're not the first person to say that. And I think one of the reasons we were all comfortable in really taking their funding to 70 from 85 and not fully funding them is some of these things have come out. But also the CPC, though, is giving them twice as much than what they asked for, if I think so, or 100 more than what they asked for.
100 more.
So that's sending a mixed message to them, right? That our board is saying, hey, we're a little uncomfortable here, or, we have some questions. We're getting feedback from the community, and, that's causing us to ask questions. But the CPC is saying, well, we want to more than fund what you have. So I don't want the town to be in a position to look like it's sending them a mixed message. But I do think I don't know if you can put this in the report, Dorothy, is it possible to say, we have received feedback about some concerns with the food pantry. That might be too strong. I don't know. But I think the first thing we should do is maybe send a letter to the Interfaith Council board. And that, or maybe Dorothy can just call them. I don't know. But maybe they're not as aware with the community as you are, Brooke. I mean, we know that you're really in it every day.
Well, I think the problem with doing that is that the Interfaith Council 100% supports what they're doing and the way things are run. And I think maybe that's part of the problem. You could become complacent, and when things, aren't.
But our job's not to challenge their board.
Our job is to challenge how our funding goes to those boards and how that funding is used. And we have in the past. So just to say this, Jill, we have not funded completely the Interfaith Council for a while over concerns over salaries and financials and maybe the direct services are provided. We cannot tell a company a nonprofit how to run their business, right? Or run their nonprofit. We can make suggestions as a town, as we did. And one year we had Fairwinds do a managerial audit because nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. Nobody was transparent. Nothing made sense to us. So we did. And that was part of their funding. Their funding was upon that. We have the ability to put onto our grants funding requests, whether it is in saying that we may make a recommendation. We could say we'd like a recommendation of them to overlook, because of concerns that have come up, to look at the different things that Brooke has said. We can actually write that to them as part of our grant process. Can we not, Rachel? We can.
I think part of this is it's this stage, but
Right.
usually if the agency was there and you were asking them questions, obviously it happened after the fact, but hey, we've heard that you have a line. What are some things that you're doing to change that or make that better? Or what are some changes, everybody changes due to COVID, what are some things your agency is doing? Not necessarily challenging them, but trying to maybe get to the efficiencies of their agency. How information was forthcoming, the challenges this board had with another organization, that's where they said, we'll give you this funding, but we want you to do this with this amount. You can certainly do that. It's just hard to recommend an agency look into something or do some kind of thing to review their efficiencies without providing them the funding to do so. Jill's idea of providing feedback, though, to the agency at this stage is probably the best way to do it until next year, just to say, these are some things that we would like you to maybe take a look at or that we've noted or we've heard. But again, I do echo Dorothy in that this group in the past at least 2 to 3 years that I'm aware of, if not more, have brought up some concerns with how Interfaith's budget is and sometimes their service delivery. So I don't think it's a brand new conversation for you guys to have. I also don't know, Jill, how CPC analyzes their applications. I don't know if it's all that different from this group, that maybe this group would have that type of level of information that they don't, or maybe it's exactly the same. I don't know, but I I do think it's important that if that's something this group feels, to share it with the agency so they're not caught off guard next year, or at least are aware that there's some information or maybe there's some things that they could look into, is just a due diligence, respect type of thing for the agency, I suppose.
So, as far as CPC goes, I know it's a completely different grant request because it's just for direct delivery and it's only for rental assistance because the CPC can only do housing stuff within their mandate. So it is it's a different purpose and it's a different, but I mean, I think the concerns that were raised for me were about the food pantry, but it may be organization wide. And I guess is it possible for us to suggest to them that some of the issues that this board has been concerned about, that we would expect them to do a more deliberate effort to get some outside input on the concerns that have been expressed by this board before, in advance of their returning? I mean, that we will be asking about that next year, and just give them a heads up, and give them a year to consider how they might do that without directing them as to what to do. I don't know, outlining the concerns, the complexity of their financials, that there's been, feedback given to our board about efficiencies and innovation within the industry, and maybe just give them a heads up that these are questions that are going to come from us next year.
I
I
think,
don't know.
could we not put an asterisk next to their name as we have prior? Just saying that the CRC is also sending a letter with recommendations of issues they would like to see addressed over the next coming year. Can we put something like that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking directly
Yeah.
at the screen.
I
You're
wasn't sure.
looking at all of
I
us.
can't tell who you're looking at. You're all different.
Sorry.
I don't see why not. I mean, we have done it in the past. And sometimes, like Jill has said, those conversations were done by actual conversations or at the table with the agency or through a written form. So at this stage, a letter. I do agree with Jill. They do have a board. And, we do want to get careful that we're not trying to tell an agency how to do their job. We're just noting some things. So it would be good to say, here's some things that we see, maybe here's some things from recommendation, and to send it to the executive director or whatever her title is, and the Interfaith Council board.
Okay.
Then they can do that from there. And then you can maybe be a little more attentive and question next year.
So Brooke, Rachel, I'm gonna run this by you just for clarification. We could write, sorry, Jill. Do you want to talk before I talk, Jill? I don't have a problem.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. Maybe you could coordinate with the CPC, and if it came from both committees, maybe that, if that's appropriate, or if they feel that way, maybe they don't, but maybe you could have a talk with them as well. And then maybe that would carry a little more weight.
We can. I have not heard that be an issue with the CPC, but I can reach out to the chair and see if they've had any concerns over it. I would just say that, Brooke, I think if we addressed a letter, and in asterisk, I don't mind putting an asterisk. Usually if I put an asterisk, there could be a question asked of why we might be asking that. And we can say that what we did find this year was there was further, we would like to have further discussion with the Interfaith Council, in board pertaining to some concerns that have shown up, and sometimes that will allow us for more discussion and something to be addressed a little bit more readily. And if you wanted to get me the content of what your concerns were or what came forward to you, I would be more than happy to address a letter and get it to everybody for approval. and then we could send it out. Does that sound good, Brooke?
Yes.
Is everybody else okay with that, going that way?
Well, let me just understand what you're saying. You're gonna talk to Brooke. You're gonna get a little bit more feedback from her, and then no pun intended feedback, but
Honey,
trying to inject a little humor today. And then you're going to maybe contact the CPC to see if they want to engage in that conversation or not, or just have a talk, and then maybe produce a letter from this committee.
then I would produce a letter from this committee,
Okay.
whether or not the CPC has feedback or not. Okay. But that letter
Okay.
would be, that letter would go to all of you for approval to see what you think about.
Yeah.
The letter.
I just like it when there's consistency government-wide from the town of Nantucket. So I feel like that's a good goal rather than us looking a little rogue. I don't want us to look like that. I want us to be a responsible committee, but I want us to, at least reach out to the CPC. Do they get funding from another town entity, Rachel? I don't even know.
No, just the CPC.
Okay.
Well, yes, they're getting funding right now, but the funding is just relief funds, right? They don't go for grant funding. They're getting that money through.
That's not technically through us, though.
Right. That's the federal bill, right?
And Community Foundation, which is private.
Foundation, which is private. So why don't we?
I'm comfortable with it. I'm not positive I'm going to sign off on the letter, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just feel like I've got to respect their board as well. And I'd feel really good, Dorothy, if you talked to that board. I mean, these are really upstanding members of our community. So I just,
I don't think that we're not saying, I don't think that writing a letter to the board is not discussing it with the board, that we'll ask for open discussion with them on it.
yeah, that'd be great. I'm for transparency.
We're doing for concern. I don't think that we have, just for the record, that we've maybe been put underneath the microscope a bit, but we've been put under the microscope for being very transparent about how we feel about things,
Yeah.
being very forthright with we have never ever addressed anything publicly we didn't address with an organization privately first, because that's the way we do things. So if we're upset with somebody, we've never had a problem with saying, we see this as an issue, this is coming from us, how are you going to address this before anything's ever gone public. And sometimes that transparency has hurt us, but we've stood our grounds in saying that it was the right way to do it. And so I have never said anything on here that I wouldn't say to somebody if I sat down with them.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that some of these stories, they're anecdotal at this point. I think what you all have laid out is really some of the numbers maybe didn't quite add up for you. And I think that's really valid. But in that conversation to say, hey, we're getting some feedback from the grassroots who are around this organization and who, are being served by it. And, that's kind of really, and that's what we're supposed to do. Brooke, you're amazing at being on the ground and knowing all these things, and they need to know that. So.
Okay. Is everybody happy with us going that route?
Yeah, I think that you can accomplish so much more with a face-to-face conversation than you can with a letter.
Well, then does it make sense before we do anything in writing to invite them back to a meeting to talk?
I think that
rather than starting with a letter to bring them, invite the board and the management of the organization.
I think
It's just
what
such a,
best is not that we invite them back as a full whole, but maybe if you come up with the list and we met with them, with the board separately, then in this whole entity. And if we had, because at this point, we've really done most of our deliberations on this.
right.
But I think if we talked with them and sat down, if that's the route we want to go, I would not do it as a full board at this moment in time. I think I would do it, singly or a couple of us according to what we could do. And then go from there on what we felt on the feedback from it. And maybe go, as Jill has asked, go to the CPC first and then sit down with them once we see whether it's a concern of anybody else. It was interesting, a couple of years ago, they had an open forum. Actually, Fair Winds called it for themselves. And they invited Rachel and I to go sit in on a discussion where they asked us to be frank about how we felt about the organization. And we went in there with different organizations, and the CPC was one of them, and the Community Foundation was one of them. And we sat down, and all the fears that we had had over all the years about transparency and all that, and we were like, we weren't sure how we would be taken. Everybody there had the same concerns. Everybody, but nobody had ever vocally spoken about them. And it was so there could be, the possibility could be there that people in the CPC are seeing the same exact thing you are hearing, Brooke. But it was definitely an awakening. Go, Rachel.
I just also wanted to remind you, when you do meet later for review of the quarterly reports, if that's the process you're still doing, you have the opportunity to invite the agencies then to discuss their quarterly reports and status of how they're doing.
Okay.
That's based on the grant status of what you're just now approving. So you might have an opportunity for some dialogue then, if that's a route that you chose as well. It's just another option to keep dialogue with an agency open.
Okay, Brooke.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to participate as an interviewee of a strategic planning consultant from another island nonprofit that I had experience with. And, when I was listening to this feedback, and I know we can't tell them what to do, right, as an organization, but I found that experience really interesting because that organization really took the feedback that they got that was collected anonymously by a strategic planning consultant and really adapted in positive ways. And so that's sort of what came to my mind in terms of like what might be helpful in this circumstance. And I don't know how, whether we have a role in hinting at, or just saying, I don't know. I just
Okay,
feeling very awkward.
Brooke, why don't you and I carry on this discussion a little bit further outside of here
Okay.
about how we can address it?
Okay.
And then if we have questions, we have a boss we can come back and ask.
Okay, great.
Right, Rachel?
It all ends up in your lap, Rachel.
Technically, Jericho, go ask him.
Actually, what just so everybody knows that even before you get the report, or do anything, I always will reach out to Rachel or any administration before I discuss anything with you or write anything publicly to make sure that it fits into the it doesn't step on boundaries or that we've stayed within the realm of where I'm supposed to. So yeah, poor Rachel has a hotline. So with that, and thank you for the discussion, Brooke, and thank you for bringing that up because that's what this forum is all about. This is what we're supposed to do. So thank you very much. Do we?
We did one motion. You said you needed the second motion to
Yep.
approve the amount that we had allocated in our report. And I'll make that motion that we approve the allocation as set forth in the draft report.
Second.
Second,
Oh, okay. So Bert Johnson,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
John Balash,
aye.
Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Okay, Dorothy's gonna eye it too. So everybody, I will get the edited report to you ASAP. And it will go out. I'm sorry to say this, it will probably go out. Well, maybe not. But I think it'll probably go out to FinCom. Yeah, it will go. It'll go out to FinCom as a drafted report, the written report, because you will not be able to vote on the edited, and on the 24th, you'll just vote on the edited report. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Rachel, did you have anything to add? No. Okay. So it goes out today, and then everybody, the 16th is the presentation to the FinCom. And I'm not quite sure on the time of that. I'm sorry, I should have it in front of me.
Probably 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's 4 o'clock. I'm gonna have Ann send everybody the Zoom link.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Because anybody that can be present, it is always nice to be there to support. We also will let the agencies know about the presentation, because that is part of our procedure. Is at this point, they will know that we are going to make the presentation and when we will. Sometimes it's good to have them there. If I don't get a number right or something right, or want to ask them. And it's also good to have them there because they have an invested interest in this. So, Brooke,
Did you say the 15th or 16th?
16th,
Oh, I had it on my calendar on the 15th. Okay, great.
okay?
Right, 4 p.m.
Bert?
Got it.
Yeah, Bert,
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will take that. Bert,
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Dorothy says aye. Thanks, everybody. Rachel, thank you very much for always showing up. And for your,
Thanks,
Thank you, Ann,
everybody.
for getting everything to us.
yeah, and your input.
Jill, did you get those reports that I sent to your email?
I did. And
Okay,
just so you know, I did go back through my email and I didn't have it from Saturday or Sunday, so.
Okay.
Dorothy, can you chat now by phone?
By phone? Yes, I have 45 minutes. I'd be more than happy to.
Bye, thanks, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, Brooke, you have my number?
What is it?
508
Mm-hmm,
221
mm-hmm.
3274.
I'll call you in 2 secs.
Bye, John.